Before I bring my family up, I'm speechless, really. Don't know really what to say. What a teacher your son was to all of us, Janice. And I would like to make clear that we wouldn't all be here tonight if we weren't all mustard seeds, and that the seeds in each of us that has created this evening to take place. I've had goose pimples ever since I got on the airplane with my family here that I haven't seen for years and years and years. They were just little kids when I saw them. And then coming into the hotel tonight with the greetings, and then saw the book with so many sitters, and just feeling John Fetzer's presence here tonight. John and I like to hang out on the phone with each other when we get stuck in the Course of Miracles with each other. And Di and I had the privilege of being with him in Hawaii just about 2.5 weeks before he died. And we were privileged that he had been going kind of downhill, but the night we were there, he was up. And we had a long dinner with him and a wonderful evening. And I really feel his presence in terms of this whole evening and tomorrow is going to demonstrate what he really wanted to see happen. And it's so wonderful to see words and thoughts and action being put together. I really want to take an opportunity to thank everyone that worked on this conference. I don't think that one person can put something like this together. And it's beyond my belief in terms of the many hours and hours and hours that have been spent in creating this conference. And I have a vision. I just feel the electricity and the energy that's here, that something very different is going to happen in the connections that are going to be taking place here tonight and tomorrow and Sunday. That I think one of the most beautiful things is to see that attitudinal healing has gone in so many different directions, and that the energy in one place is going to be different than another place. And I really see a vision of attitudinal healing being used in many, many ways that we haven't even thought of yet. But the most important thing is, I think, is what Judy said, and that is to be around witnesses that demonstrate and make the commitment that says, hey, there is another way of looking at the world. And that I don't choose to be a victim anymore. And we did a little prayer tonight here from the Course. And we all had little fears about how many people were here. And after the prayer, I heard Joe say that, we don't have anything to fear because tonight everyone is going to be so loving and they're going to also be forgiving. So I'm going to ask my family to come up now, and we're going to hear some stories that have changed my life, and I trust will change your life too. I think I'm going to sit here. I think, Tim, if you sit over there. No. Joe, how old were you when you came to the center?
I was 10.
And how old are you now?
I'm 26. No, 25. I'm 26 in a month. I always forget, you get a little nervous when you come up here.
Joe, what brought you to the center? Remember?
Well, I had gone through leukemia for about a year, and I got a knock on the door one day. It was my friend Jerry, and he came in and sat down and said, I'd like to talk to you for a second, Joe, if you have the time for me. I said, gosh, the man saying this to me, I'm just a kid, and I'm sure, I have as much time as you want. And he asked me if I wanted to come and help start a 6-week project that brought together about 6 kids and to talk about our problems. And I said, what problems? He said, well, don't you have any problems? I'm like, yeah, I'm going through cancer and I have no one to talk to. I don't know what to say or what to do because none of my friends do, and none of my family knows what I'm going through. He said, well, I've got some other kids together that want to talk. why don't we all get together and talk about it? I said, sure. Sounds like a great idea. Well, if I figure this out right, I was 10, 25, it's about 16 years ago almost, and now I see this. And I tell you, that 6-week project did not seem like it was going to turn into this. I had the opportunity when I first got here off the airplane, kind of tired, just slept on the way over from Chicago, bumpy ride that was, not used to those little planes. And I was kind of tired and worn out and just needed to unwind a little bit, just needed to go into my room and sit back. And I was riding up with this lady, and I noticed that she had a different accent, and I looked over, and on her little card it said Perth, Australia. Well, Perth, Australia. God, there's a center over there now too? I'm all, this is what I wanted to see, because when this started out, after that 6 weeks, Jerry had a little dinner for us and said, well, okay, this is it, this is the end, stop. And all the 6 of us looked at each other and said, no way, we want this to go on. And now I see that after 16 years, this has gone on, and people from Australia and Canada, and I think in there Spain, I'm just like, wow, this is what the center is all about. Getting people together to talk about their problems, to help each other, like Jerry has helped me, like I've helped Jerry, I've helped Sally and Tim and Andrea, and now my new friend over here, that hopefully he'll help me learn from him, and I'll help him to learn from me what I've gone through and that he's going through. And so we can all just be together. I have so much energy right now in front of all you people, and just sitting next to Jerry, that I could run up and just start running.
I want to mention a way that you and the rest of the kids back there then really helped me. And I think in those days, I saw a miracle as something that I thought that was impossible to do, to be able to do that. And I had taken you and I think about 5 others to Texas. And I bought a lot of stuff to take on the plane. And one of the things I bought was a bubble gum. Now, what they didn't know was I'd never been able to blow a bubble with bubble gum. I thought God created my mouth and my teeth just differently than other people. And these wonderful people that were with me, these kids, were so patient and persistent all the way from California to Texas, and I still couldn't do it. And I remember very well, just as the plane was coming down, I blew a perfect bubble that busted and went all over my face. And not only did they clap, but apparently the whole plane clapped. So I thank you for helping me create that one, Joe. That was wonderful. You know, one of our principles is that everyone's an equal teacher, student to each other. And it used to be in conventional psychotherapy that you treat parents and then the parents would be able to help the kids. But oftentimes we find in attitudinal healing that it's just the opposite, that the children become our teachers and that the parents learn from kids. And Joe, you came from a family that didn't even want to use the word cancer or leukemia. And you began finding that people were using that in the group. I want to share that process because you were very helpful to your parents.
Well, when I first started, before I had gotten sick, a really good friend of mine and a close friend of the family, who was my age at the time, had just passed away of leukemia. So when I had found out that I had gotten leukemia, oh well, I was a goner. My mom thought I was going to die. And that was not the word to say inside the house. So also at that time, there was a movie out called Something for Joey. And it was about John Capoletti, a Heisman Trophy winner, who had just won the Heisman Trophy, and his little brother was dying of leukemia. And my mom had forbid that movie to be even watched in our house. That word, cancer, anything, you could not say, because she did not want to hear that. She did not want to see, I'm the youngest out of 5 children, her baby die. And I started going to the center, and I found out, well, this isn't a bad word, because this kid has it too, and so does that person, and so do I. I'm not the only one, which I thought I was at the time. And I started coming home, I said, hey, I've got leukemia, Ma. You know that? And she'd be all, oh my God, what is this kid saying to me? And I'm all, Ma, we gotta face it. I'm not gonna die because I don't wanna die. I wanna live, and I'm not gonna let this beat me. And this leukemia, this cancer, I don't care how much it's gonna take out of me, I'm just not gonna let it take me over. And she says, okay, that's the way you want it, then we're gonna work together. And after that day, and after that show, my mom sat down there and we talked all the time about me having leukemia. And what I saw in my mother was, wow, I'm learning something from my son. And I always thought that, like Jerry said, I have to learn from my parents. But I felt that I was at that time an equal with my mom and was able to talk to her and say, hey, let's work with this together. I come from a really old-fashioned family who's, really into God, and they said, well, let's going to work on this, and we're going to work on this together, and God is going to play a part, and we're going to pray and be happy and love each other. And my family, like I said, I come from a large family, was out like this, and at the end of me going through all my treatment are now like this. And I tell you, there's not a day in the week that I go by that I don't talk to one of my 4 brothers or my sister or call my mom just to say, hi, Ma, I love you. What's going on? And I thought that by going to the center, it taught me not to be afraid to tell somebody that I love them and that I want to help you or help me. Because at the very beginning, the center was, nobody was a teacher and nobody was a student. We were all equals. And I was able to go up and say, hey, you're having trouble taking this drug? Well, so am I. Well, this is what I do. And they'd say, well, this is what I do. And that bond and the love that was built then has always stayed with me. And I use that now and today. And I never let anything, I try not to let anything get me down.
How are you using attitudinal healing in your life today, Joe? Could you share that?
Well, I was talking to Timon and some new friends I had just met at dinner, and I had said that I was just getting over some midterms and some real hard classes and some hard papers I had to write. And during this time, I have a lot of frustration and a lot of anger and guilt and, oh, this teacher could have given me this extra answer for that A, or God, I could have done this better, and I get mad. And I have this little trick that I learned way, way, way back when the center first started was I took all those angers and guilts and bad feelings, and I'd put them in a little can. And I'd cover that can. And I'd put a little balloon on top of that can, and I'd let that thing sail away. And I'd sit there and go, I'm better now. And that little time, that little essence helped me. And by having that little essence helping me, I go out and someone cuts me off on the road, and you just want to say, ah! And I'm all, well, that person must be in a hurry. I'll let them go by. Or I deal a lot with kids now, and the center has taught me that is what I want to do. I want to work with kids. I'm a giant kid. I might be old, but we're all kids at heart, and I'll tell you, we'll always be that way as long as we think that. I've coached baseball. I have helped kids at volunteer work, at drug rehabs, and I've gone to juvenile halls and have helped kids learn how to read. And I see this, and I want to give them what I learned from the center and how to forgive and how to live life and to go on and to love. You may be in a bad spot at a certain time, but those spots will always go away. There is always, as the book says, a rainbow behind every dark cloud. And it's true. It always is.
You remember the radio program, KGO, with you and Sharon?
Yeah.
That people were calling, asking for advice? I think some guy called, he stopped his car?
Yeah. The center had been going on for a while, and we just started getting some publicity. And KGO Radio, Newstalk Radio in San Francisco, had asked us to be on. And they had asked me to be on with this girl, Sharon. And we got to be on for an hour-long talk show. And we had been talking to some people about some problems, and we get this phone call from this guy, and all I hear on the telephone is, and he's out of breath. He's all, I just want to tell you guys, I'm stuck in traffic here in the city, trying to get to work. And I had just been diagnosed yesterday with Hodgkin's. And I don't know what to do. And now being stuck in traffic, listening to you guys on the radio, I'm driving along, I see this pay telephone, I have to stop and call and say, hey, I can live life now because of what you young people have said to me and are teaching people and saying that I can now go on with my life. I can now go to work and say, I've got Hodgkin's, but I'm going to beat this. I am not going to let this take care of me. And I said, you know something? You've just made my day because that is exactly what I want. I want to be able to go out and help people who want to help themselves, who want to help me. And by him saying that to me, well, that helps me because that makes me grow inside and be a better person. My inner light, that Jerry always used to say, shines a lot brighter when that happens. And by saying, that guy saying that, he's all, I just want to hope that you guys go on and keep doing this. I said, well, I think we have a start now by being on radio. I hope we go on too.
I remember a time when you were in high school and your mother really didn't want you to play football. She thought you were going to get injured in some way and then bring the leukemia back or something of this sort. And I remember that you finally got to play football. I remember going to that game with your mother on a Friday afternoon, and what a beautiful day that was. You want to share that?
Well, I come from, like I said, a very large family, and all my brothers I'm the smallest of the family. And I have some really big brothers, and I was taught young that, hey, if you want to survive, well, you got to be a survivor, and you got to work hard, and play hard. And playing with big brothers like that, you learn how to play hard. And I had always wanted to play football. And in the very beginning, I was too sick. I couldn't play what we call Pop Warner, which is a junior league. And I got into high school, and I was better. And I said, hey, I'm going to play football. And my mom was, no way, you're not going to play. This what happens to this. I'm like, Ma, I'm better now. I want to do this. This is what I need to do. This will help me grow. And she'd go to the game, and she'd be up in the stands. And next thing you know, I'd be in the huddle with all my friends. Go get him, Joey! And I'd be in the huddle, and my friends look at me and goes, gee, who's that? I'd be all, that's my mom. And once she saw that I wanted to do it and that I had fun and that brought out the energy that I needed in me, she said, well, okay, you can do it. But every time I looked up, she was always looking like this and never watching the play. Still to this day, I don't think she ever saw me play. But my mom and I have always had a really good relationship. And we have grown from each other. And by doing that, by letting me doing that, always cutting the little strings from your baby. And I tell you, it's hard for her. It's even harder for me. But I think that her and I have grown up so much together. It's great. And with Jerry and all that helping us, there's no room to stop growing. And by being here and by seeing all these centers and by saying that, hey, if I was able to go out and play football, have my mom watch, I know that there's probably parents out there that maybe have the same feelings. Well, that's what you got to do, and you'll grow and you'll learn and you'll love a lot more.
I'd like to say a couple of things to you, Joe, that I think a definition of maturity is to let the little kid in you come out and play. And I think you do that beautifully, because I think everyone here is infected, not by things coming from your head, but by things coming from your heart, and the kind of commitment that you've made of taking something that's been terribly serious, life-threatening, and turning that around. And really, I don't think you fully realize how inspiring you are in terms of what you have to say. And being human, there are those of us who have rough days and are not so sure about some of these principles. And being able to be in your presence, each of us is going to go away with larger wings than we had before. And I'm sure you too are going to go away with larger wings in terms of what's going to happen to you as you leave here. Anything else you'd like to say?
I just want to say that for me to see all of you and from all the energy, like I said, I have, that's just not for me being excited being up here. It's from all the energy that I feel, from all the smiling faces that I see, that all the people that want to help, so many more people that, like Jerry said, I still don't understand to this day how much I help. And something I didn't say on the plane was, the other day I saw a kid who's about 5 years younger than I am at my college, and well, I'm an old senior, and I saw him. He's, Joe Orr, you remember me? Well, yeah, you look familiar. I think I do. He's like, yeah, you used to coach me baseball about 7 years ago. I wanted to tell you, back then, I was nothing. I was getting into bad times. I was going with the bad people and wrong stuff. And you came into my life and you helped me and you showed me and you told me that, hey, there's more out there than just what I perceive for myself, but what I can learn from others. And now I see this kid just about to graduate. He's going into juvenile psychology and wants to work with kids. And he says that if it wasn't for me, he wouldn't be doing that. And I just...
That's wonderful. A lot more I want to ask, but we need to go on. But one thing I need to add is that, you know, when we first saw you and your family, your parents had their emotions pretty close to their vest. And what happened, I think, really through you and the other children that they met, was they became very involved with our center. Your dad became a board member for many, many years, and your mother became very, very active in our group process and supported us and picnics and all the other kind of things for many, many years. Okay, let's turn to, your name is?
Sally.
And tell us how you got involved with the center, Sally.
Well, I was diagnosed with an ovarian tumor, a 5-pound ovarian tumor when I was around 19. And I didn't know anybody my age who had cancer. And I didn't know anything about chemotherapy. And then I wasn't really... I didn't know what it was going to happen, and that's where a lot of the fear came in. And then I lost all my hair, and I was still trying to go to school, and I was on the swimming and diving team, and I'd wear a swim cap, and I would try to hide the fact that I had cancer, because anytime I talked about it, people would not want to talk to me. You know, they want to talk about something else because they're so scared for me, because everybody thought I was going to die. And then somebody said, you should go to a psychiatrist. I said, well, I don't want to talk to a psychiatrist. And then finally somebody mentioned to my folks about the Center for Attitudinal Healing, where a group of young adults get together and talk about what's going on. And I didn't know any other people my age who had cancer who were going through it. And so I had a lot of feelings that were going on inside, and I'd learned not to talk about them because it just didn't do me any good to talk about them when people would start crying. And so the first time I walked into the Center for Attitudinal Healing, and there's all these young adults, and I can spot a wig a mile away now, and I walked in, and here's all these young adults, and they're wearing wigs and scarves, and everyone's bald like me, or most everyone. And I immediately felt a little bit of relief, because I thought I finally found a connection. And I told what had happened in the last year in about 2 or 3 minutes, because that's how I'd learned to sum it up, and nobody else could listen to it longer than that up to that point. And then the facilitator at that time said, God, that's a lot, you know, don't you want to talk about something else? And I remember just crying because I wanted to, but I'd never been able to. There'd never been a format to talk about it, and it was such a relief. And I felt so safe. I could talk about anything that was going on, and I didn't have to worry about protecting anybody. And that to me was so great, and I met so many great people, and it just made a tremendous difference in my recovery.
You've been on a number of television programs. You want to share what that experience was like?
Well, I was on 60 Minutes and with Mike Wallace, and it's really exciting because I know I can, in a sense, reach out to those people who are not as fortunate as me to have a center close by at that time, that I could at least talk and say that there is a way of going through a serious illness with something other than a real fearful attitude. And you know, we had a hotline at that time, and we could talk to other young adults who were going through something similar, and that was a big relief for me too, because I could help somebody else and get the focus off myself, and that always made me feel better. And there was also the Phil Donahue show, and that was just a lot of fun. And so those were two of the programs I remember.
It hasn't all been sweetness and light. You've gone through seeing a lot of people die. Sharon Winter was very close to you and daughter to me. That was a heavy trip. I want to share how you acclimated, how you dealt with some of those things.
Sharon and I, she was there at that first meeting I ever went to. And it was like a spiritual connection, because we would be known to be in a meeting, and I would start to say something, and I'd hesitate and pause, and she'd finish the sentence for me. And that, it was just like that the whole time we knew each other. And Sharon was one of these people. I was describing her to Jerry as that she lived far away, in the sense she lived, not within driving distance at that time for me. And so anytime I got to see her, I was always so glad, because she just had this light about her. She was always so open and energetic, and just had this smile that lit up, and she was always full of energy. And when she relapsed, the other thing is we developed a sense of humor about going through something like this. And when she relapsed, and then her hair started falling back out again, I can remember, she didn't want to have the hair fall out in clumps like it does. She didn't want it to just come a piece here and a piece here. So she had me take her in the bathroom, and she had me cut her hair. And I've never cut hair before, and I told her that. She goes, "Don't worry." And we giggled and laughed, and I just chopped her hair up, and it was just like she didn't care, That's not what it was about. And it was just that trust and that friendship. And anyway, she was just a really, really wonderful girl.
I can kind of share another thing about Sharon. We try to teach each other not to make predictions, not to make assumptions. And Sharon had become very close to my youngest son, Lee Jampolsky, and he was going to have a graduation party, getting his PhD. And I visited Sharon that morning, and she was pretty close to death. And she was on intravenous morphine, and in a lot of pain, could hardly move. Her mother was in the room. I visited her around 7:30 in the morning, and she said, "I know you don't think I'm going to be able to come to the party tonight, but I'm going to get there." And I didn't say anything, but as I was driving away in the car, I was saying to myself, no way is she going to get there. And the party started at 7, and at 8 o'clock, Sharon shows up with her mother, with a lot of makeup on. No one could possibly believe she could have been in the hospital. And she stood for 2 hours walking around that party, looking as alive and as healthy as anybody in this room. The next day, I visited her in the hospital, and she was on IV morphine, and about a week later, she died. It's amazing what our chemistry can do when our mind has that kind of pinpoint laser beam aspect. She was a very, very powerful teacher, because she really believed in the quality of life and lived it to the tilt.
Yeah, she did. She definitely did, yeah.
You stretched me one day. I don't know if you remember this episode, but you've been after me for a long time to ride a bicycle with you. Where?
Across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
That's something I'd never done before. Wasn't sure that that's something I could do. And finally, one day, what happened?
Well, we got up nice and early and took off and went over, and I think actually we ended up running across the Golden Gate Bridge. We jogged, and halfway across, I kept looking at Jerry like, "Is he going to make it?" And I kept asking him, "How are you? How are you?" And he says, "I'm fine, I'm fine." And we went all the way over, and I said, "We can walk on the way back. We can walk, just a nice view." And no, Jerry made it all the way there and all the way back, and it was really great.
Isn't it wonderful to have such wonderful teachers as these? Other things you might want to share that might be helpful here for people to hear from you.
Anytime you go through an illness, and if you have a close family like Joe was talking about, the family is such an important part of getting better and opening up. And Jerry had quite a handful with my family. My family, too, is very old-fashioned and very set in their ways. And my mom's Mormon and my dad's Catholic. And they're very strict and very loving. But when Jerry told them you can choose peace instead of conflict and love instead of fear, it didn't register. And, and when I would come home from these meetings, and I would be so alive. I mean, I'd go to a meeting sometimes, I'd be kind of in a slump, and when I come out of the meeting, the energy and the love and the support that I'd get out of those meetings surpassed anything. You couldn't even hardly put it into words, and I'd come home and try and explain it to them. And my folks just, it's like it just hurt them too much. They just couldn't comprehend it. And the thing is, you just keep, kind of like through example, the fact is I could come home and I would be in such a much better mood. And one of the things Jerry taught me, because I had a hard time with my father, because he was so full of fear, I didn't realize that's where he was coming from, that I felt like he didn't love me. And Jerry said, Sally, when you get those feelings like he's attacking you, if you can turn it around and just send him love and realize the only reason he seems like he's attacking you is because he's so full of fear. And it was so amazing, the transformation that took place between us, because instead of me attacking back and getting resentful, I just let go of and realizing where he was coming from, and it gave me such a much better insight as to what was going on. And before I had the center, I had no clue. And that's one thing the center's been able to do for me. In my everyday life, I'm back out in society now, and I'm working with people, I'm working with the public, and I'm working with coworkers, and a lot of them are not on a spiritual journey, and they're really far from it. And and I can go ahead and use the principles and use patience, and also feel very fortunate that I have a place I can go to, and that I don't have to take their attacks personally, and I can realize that they're coming from a place of fear, and that they don't have an understanding, just like I didn't have an understanding that there's a better way to live.
Could you tell us where you work?
I work at Tiffany and Company.
And you said you were applying some of those principles at work with some of your colleagues.
Where I'm working, a lot of people are very much into the material things in life, and and for me, it's nice to look at, but it's not important. That I know things that are so much more important than that, and I think we all do. And when I see them, their main concern has to do with where somebody lives and what outfit they're wearing, and if their shoes match their handbag, and that's their whole life, and their day can be ruined depending on if something's out of line in those areas. And I am so grateful that I don't have to live like that. I had cancer, chemo, 19 till I was 21. And one of the things my folks told me I could never do is touch any alcohol till I was 21. So when I got to be 21 and I was celebrating with being healthy, they had never explained to me that our family's riddled with alcoholism. And that was another taboo subject. You don't talk about it. It's like with Joe said, the word alcoholism, they're all in denial. And I'm just drinking along thinking this is what you do because I'm 21 and I'm an adult. And so that snuck up on me now, and so that's what I've made a commitment to that, and I'm in recovery, and April 9th I'll have a year in Alcoholics Anonymous.
I think you must sense also that what we're hearing is not someone's drama, but we're hearing is someone's heart, sharing their true feelings. I think the highest form of love is allowing yourself to be vulnerable and not being fearful that you're going to be attacked. And I think this is what we're experiencing tonight. And so if each of us who have the privilege of being here tonight, and can pick up this and say, hey, we're witnesses to you about what you're doing, but also it gives us more courage ourselves to say, hey, I'm not so sure that I want to get up on stage, and say something like that in front of all these people, and maybe if you can do that, you look awfully relaxed, when you say this, so obviously you don't think people are going to attack you, that maybe I can do this too. So what I want to make sure that you understand is that you're really in the process of empowering each of us to take another look and to make a different kind of commitment and not be so afraid of love.
I've also, as listening to everybody, I think so much of society is everybody tries to put such an image up and such a facade. And I tend to admire people more when they can go through something and turn it around. That's what attitudinal healing is all about. Not feel sorry for yourself and not feel like a victim, but turn around, and then it becomes a strength rather than a weakness.
Anything else you want to say?
No.
Can we give her a hand? Could you trade places with that? Those of you who get New Reality magazine, about 16 years ago, there was an 8-year-old girl by the name of Andrea and a couple of other kids, Joe and Kenny there. I don't know why you guys look so different, and I don't.
Is it because a perfect person never changes?
Andrea, tell us a little bit about how you got to the center and a little bit about your background.
At the age of 7, I was diagnosed with leukemia. It's hard for me to remember. My mother was actually given the name of the center because, as Joe and everybody has said, there just wasn't enough support in existing, just the way things were, and there was a real need. I think our whole family felt a real need to talk with people who were going through the same experience. And my whole family got real involved, and I have real good memories of all the sharing that I did and all the learning that I did and all the things I learned from Joe and other children that I got to know real well at the center.
I remember your sister asking to see me, and I don't know how she is then now, but she was pretty assertive then, and she was very clear that I'm not coming to see you as a psychiatrist. I don't need a psychiatrist. But what I need is to be able to see someone else who's in my boat, a sister of someone who's got leukemia, a sister who's someone whose parents are taking their sister to the hospital all the time and never around, a sister of someone else is getting all the gifts and I'm not getting any. And it was really through your sister that we started our sibling group. That's how we started, based on that particular need. And you might tell your sister that there are many centers have sibling groups now, and she was that little mustard seed that really had the courage to come and say, hey, I need help too. I think maybe that's one of the most difficult things we all have, is to be able to say, I need help. Please help me. And I was asking for some help for you one time, because I was kind of using you as my therapist. And we were in Chicago, and it was a Phil Donahue show, and what they do there is they film maybe 10 minutes, and then they stop and they put a commercial on and things of this sort. And I happened to be sitting right next to Andrea. And I turned to her and I said, I really didn't think I was going to be this frightened being on television, but gosh, my hands are all sweaty. And do you remember what you said?
Well, I've heard it from you and I've heard it from others, but I remember that I told you that to the effect that you thought you were nervous. Phil Donahue would come over and was sweating all over the place.
Yeah. Actually, you said his sweat was coming all over my dress. And that made me feel a lot better, So you kind of became my therapist. So you're in Mills College now,
yes.
And you're going to be graduating in May. Yes. And tell us what kind of work you're going to be doing.
I work in a field called child life in hospitals, and it's really something that I'm extremely excited about and I enjoy. Basically, it's child development and psychology in play and and preparation, and just generally having kids have a positive hospital experience, which really stems out of my experiences as a child and being hospitalized and being ill. And a lot of the things that I learned at the center and from all the people that I grew to know there are still so much a part of the things that I do in my life and that I use with the kids in the hospital.
You know, it's a real lesson to each of us that when we're going through what looks like the darkest time of our life, you know, and for you, it might be leukemia. For another person, it may be they lost their job in the recession or whatever that might be. But it feels like it's the worst thing possible that's happening to us. And yet what I hear from each one here is that somehow you've taken that experience, and there's a lesson in A Course in Miracles that says that all things are lessons God would have me learn. And somehow you've turned that around, each of you, and are using that in a different way. And I've always felt that the young people that came to the center, I still feel this way, are very wise souls in young bodies, teaching us spiritual truths if we want to listen to them. And my guidance in starting the center, when I heard that little voice talking to me, I'm getting some tears. But it said these young people would help heal me. And I thank God that I chose to listen to you. So thank you. Anything else you want to say?
I just want to say that I think all people, whether they're going through an illness or not, should remember to just live life a day at a time, take things as they come, and try to keep a positive attitude about everything that comes up in their lives. And I also want to say that I know from my work in the hospital, I realize more and more how important and what wonderful people the parents are of children who are going through cancer. I have a very great appreciation for my mother now that I've worked with families in the hospital as an adult now, and I respect each and every one of the parents who go through that experience.
Thank you, Andrew. Can you give Andrew a hand? Can you change place with Joe?
I just want to tell you, Joe, that I love you more.
Your name is?
Tinman Walker?
And there's a picture of you in the back of some book, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
What's the name of that book?
Teaching in Love.
Yeah, it's right in the back there. So how did you get to our center, Tinman? You're a big teacher of mine.
Well, I went to, as I remember, the Easter Seals, and they suggested I come see you. And I came, saw you, didn't know why I was coming to see you until after the first few meetings, I learned that there's something we can teach each other.
Some of the people don't know what happened to you before you got to the center. It seems to me that you were riding a bike?
Yes, I was riding a bicycle down our hill, and there was my bus stop on the left-hand corner at the time, and I turned my head to wave, and I turned my head back around, and there was a truck there, and the rest is history, as they say.
How long were you in coma?
82 days.
And what did the doctors say?
Well, the doctors, they said the prognosis for me was to not be able to walk, not be able to talk. And a person high up in the medical model said to my parents, he won't be able to return to the 8th grade, and also the doctors said that I would just be a vegetable for the rest of my life, and they ought to institutionalize me. They didn't, and I thank God for that, because I don't think I would be where I am today, as with a college degree, and just to prove that medical professional person wrong, that
Tim, and I don't know if you remember this, but I remember it very well. I think it was after the first week I met you. Someone gave me 2 tickets to a play in San Francisco, and I called you up and said, would you like to go with me, and decided that we would go to dinner first and go to the play. And I didn't know at that time how slowly you ate. I didn't know at that time how slowly you walk. And you became a very important teacher to me at that point in my life of patience, real patience, because it took a long time to walk just 1 block of that and during those days. And I remember one time you're coming in to me and asking for some help around, I think, was it Italian that you were taking in high school?
Yes, I was taking Italian.
And you weren't doing very well.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah. And do you remember that imagery process we went through?
The loose reel tape?
Yeah.
Yes.
Want to share that with?
Because my sister, I don't think she'll ever let me forget it. She always says, remember that tape that you played every night for a long time and kept half the house up, and I almost think she learned more than I did.
Well, there are 2 different tapes. One you're talking about now was an audio tape that we did. That I asked you, what does you really want to see yourself doing? And you said, well, I'd like to see myself being able to keep my balance, number one, without falling down. And you said, a lot of things, play basketball, go cross-country skiing, drive a car. And so we put those kind of images on and you're listening to those things. And I remember one time about 5 weeks later, you came in to me and said, Jerry, do you see that spot right there? And I said, yes. He said, well, I'm going to put a hole in the floor. Watch. And he did this, and he didn't fall down. That was a very important stepping stone that I remember. And then I remember I used to take you to medical meetings, because Tinman can say things that I couldn't say, and he can get away with them where I couldn't. So I just loved taking you with me. And I remember one fall, it was about December, and there's a big medical conference I was invited to in Los Angeles, and I asked Tinman, could he come? And I called him up on the phone. He said, gee, Jerry, I'd sure love to be able to come with you, but I'm going cross-country skiing this weekend. And then I remember you graduating the University of Las Vegas, Nevada.
University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Yeah. And you came by and showed me the car you were driving. Remember that? You were driving a car.
Yeah, I was driving the Capri I have still.
So all those kind of things that were way back there then, if we really believe our thoughts become our reality, that you were very committed to that. But what I remember about the Italian thing was that you were really very fearful about doing oral examinations. And we kind of helped you go through it in your imagination of seeing yourself go through the examination successfully. And then when you got yourself fearful, you would come back and find a safe place to be and not see the teachers attacking you and seeing her as fearful or seeing yourself as fearful and going back until you could really go through the whole thing without having any problems. And my recollection is that 2 weeks later you came in and you got an A in the examination, and all the other kids in the group wanted you to then teach them how to do the imagery. I also remember the first time that Tinman came to our center. It was a group of about 15 youngsters, about 14. You're about 14 then, I think. 14, 15. And I didn't realize this, but Tinman, has a wonderful sense of humor, and he loves to tell jokes. And he started to tell a very short joke. It took him at least 12 to 15 minutes to tell this joke. And all the kids in this group absolutely listened with full attention. No one interrupted him. It was the most beautiful example of unconditional love. And when Tinman was through, he says, and he had tears in your eyes, and he said, this is the first time since the accident that anyone's permitted me to finish the joke without interrupting me. Think for a moment how often in our conversations we interrupt other people. We want to get our agenda on rather than totally listening. We have a sign at our center that says, loving is listening and listening is loving. Now, you're on a board of directors someplace, aren't you, Timon?
Yes,
Where's that?
At the Center for Attitudinal Healing in Tiburon, California.
So isn't that kind of a beautiful circle that you've made? So what are some other things? How are you using attitudinal healing in your life these days?
Well, as a week ago or something about that, I went to see a Bob Proctor seminar, basically because he said on the television, it's free. And I like that. So I went to it, and they did all this hoopla over about these tapes that he had to sell, and they cost much more money than I had. And so I casually, it broke up and most people were ordering the tapes, and I walked out to where they were ordering them and spoke to one person, and I said, I don't have the money for it on me. Plus, I don't know if I want the tapes in the first place. And he came back to me and said, well, there's a fine line dividing winners and losers. And with that, I said, well, I guess I'm a loser, and walked out. And with that, I think I took the choice of saying, I'm the real winner, because I don't want that. I don't want those. And earlier, he asked me about the doctors and what they said to my parents when I was in a coma, and another thing they often said was, all we can tell you is what he is doing presently at this point in time, and the future we don't know about. So all we can do is say he's going to be in a coma, because he is now. And they didn't give me a very much of a bright prognosis. And can I make another comment?
Sure.
I also see, like Joe said, all of these other centers out there. I knew there was our center, and I sort of had the inclination there was one in Austin, and I knew there was a Fetzer Institute, but I didn't know there was one in Indianapolis, and I saw there was one in Canada as I was walking past all the tables in there.
Tim, and do you know there are people here from Belgium? People came all the way from Argentina, from Chile.
No.
All far away. There's that book that we gave us. Look there. There's over 100 centers. I'm as amazed as you.
Well, short, what I'm saying is, I am amazed that if you would say that mustard seed that we planted back there, 16 years ago, grew into something this big.
And the lesson here tonight is that each of us have a new mustard seed to create for ourselves, and we're not sure what direction that's going to go, but if we take off all the limits, as you have, and say, no, I'm not going to believe the impossible, then those kind of miracles can happen, because what a miracle is removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, and you continue to offer your services very freely to help other people. Tim and I used to do a lot of flying together, and we would fly to someone that was in coma. Can you imagine someone coming like Timon into a hospital room, and you have a child in coma, and you don't know if he's going to come out of this coma or not, and you have Timon talking to the parents and talking to the kid, knowing that that child can hear Tinman. What a help! And to know that as Tinman does this, each time that he did this, he was helping himself. You teach what you want to learn. You teach what you want to learn. Anything else you'd like to say?
Not that I can think of at this point in time.
Okay, can we give him a hand? You stay there, your mom stay there. Play a little musical chairs here. Susan, how did you get to the center? How long ago was that now?
It's been about 5 or 6 years.
How did that all happen?
For me, I had been, and I still do, work with developmentally disabled people. And one of my clients was hit by a car and killed. And his mom found the center, and she passed that on to me. And that was a gift, because for me, I had already lost 2 people. One in a car accident, and the other one was murdered. And so I came to the Persons to Persons group, and I found that people wanted to hear what I had to say. They didn't cut me off and just say, you know, it's like nobody knows how to listen. Nobody knows how to just to keep you with your feelings. It's just more of, you know, oh, it's a nice day, or, you know, just try to redirect you instead of exactly where you're at and what you're trying to share. And then a few years after that, my ex-husband was diagnosed with AIDS, and I right away went into the panic of I'm a mother, and you know, what am I going to do, and how's my son going to feel? Because what I felt, no one would help me, and right away I called the center and wasn't quite sure when he should actually start the support group. You know, it's like, when do you actually know when a person needs support? And I called and got him an intake, and came down to the center and met a wonderful person, Kathy Harris, who's here, and just turned my son over to her in the center and said, like what was said, I need help. I don't know what to do, and I didn't know how he could survive with having a dad, one who was going to die, one who had AIDS, one that was gay. I mean, there was a lot of issues that I just felt like it was unfair that I had to be presented with.
And at that time, you kind of protected Nicholas, and you knew, Nicholas, you knew your dad had a very serious illness, but you didn't know he had AIDS. Is that right, at the very beginning?
Right.
Yeah.
Nicholas and I were in Hawaii when his dad called me and told me, and I told Nick that his dad was really sick, and I believe I said cancer. I just didn't want to tell him it was AIDS.
And then how soon thereafter did that happen? Did you finally share it?
Well, I kept coming to the center and kept talking about it, and quite wasn't sure to tell him. And then one night in group, I just felt like, it was okay. There was nothing to fear. And I just had to let go of it and turn it over. And on the way home, I told Nicholas, and his reaction was, are you kidding? And, because I told him both, that his dad had AIDS and that his dad was gay. And then he felt angry that I wasn't honest with him.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about the contact you've had with Kathy Harris. You mentioned that although she's not at our center anymore, she still keeps contact with you.
Yeah, it's a person that has encouraged me to, every time I've talked to her, has said that I was doing the right thing, and what a credible gift that my son had for me as a teacher to have to just been there for him. And for Nicholas, a person that I feel that she is a rock of love, that for him is this person that it's this instantly, I'm loved, no matter what.
Now, the reason I asked Susan and Nicholas to come tonight was that I really feel this whole problem of AIDS and children losing one or both parents is going to increase and increase and increase, particularly in cities like New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco. So it's something that I think we who are involved in attitudinal healing might want to hear about and ask our own guidance. Is this something that we might want to get involved in some way, somehow? You had a lot of problems that most mothers would have. Should I let my son visit my ex-husband? Will he catch AIDS? What will happen? Is it safe? All the other kinds of things. And maybe you might just share a few of those things about things that go through a mother's heart.
Well, there was a lot of fear. And I thought, well, what if they use the same toothbrush? What if they, drink out of the same glass? And what I really wanted in my heart for Nick to know his dad. I knew that what I've been told is that, you do die of AIDS and that his dad wasn't going to be there. And I felt to don't let my fears get in the way of my son not knowing his dad and spending time with him. And all I can do of learning from losing my friends and learning about death, all I can do is turn it over. It's not up to me. It's not up to me to protect my child. And I'm just so happy that was my decision.
It takes a lot of strength to make that kind of decision, to say, I want my son. I want my son to know his father as much as he can, and I'm willing to let go of my fears and support that process. And that's what you did, and being a wonderful teacher. I don't know that all of us can do that, would be willing to do that. But again, hearing that you did that, I think would give each of us courage to allow that to happen. Nicholas, you've been coming to the center for a long time, and you still seem to like coming there. Tell me a little bit about what's it been like for you.
It has been great. They've given me a lot of support since my dad has AIDS and since he just passed away in November. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah. And well, we talked about a little more things on the plane, I think. Did you ever have any fear of going back into the classroom after your dad died?
Yes, I did. I thought kids would make fun of me because they would probably say that I had a dad, and you didn't.
Right. So if we go back to Mom, as I recall, you called the school.
I called the school. Nick had told me he was afraid, and I called and talked to the secretary and just said that Nick was not coming in. His dad passed away. And I just made the comment of, well, I think he feels he'll be teased and he's afraid. And what happened from that was the principal went in and talked to the classroom. And there was 2 kids in there that opened up who had never shared. One girl had lost her mother, and another boy, his uncle, had committed suicide a couple of weeks before that. And the teacher also had lost her dad when she was in the 4th grade, and that was never discussed, and it just brought the whole classroom into an opening of wanting to talk about it.
We're going to be hearing the next few days about some of the centers that are open doors about working with schools around loss and grief, around other kinds of relation problems. I think it's a very, very important area. Next, you're how old now?
10.
10. You know, say someone who was 8 years old that you met, and all of a sudden they heard what you heard from your mother, that your dad was very ill, that he was gay, and that he was dying. 3 really terrible things. You can imagine the kind of fear based on what you went through. But since you've been through that, if you were talking to him and he was asking you for some kind of help, what do you think you might say to him?
I would probably say go to a place called the Center for Attitudinal Healing.
That's not quite what I meant. Yeah, but if you want to know more about the Attitudinal Healing Center, what would you say? Or if he was asking, hey, I need some help. I don't know how to handle these emotions. I want you to tell me. You've been through it. They haven't.
I would probably say it's okay to do what you can do, and it's okay to be by the person that just happened to you, like your father, if he just had that. It's okay to be with him. It's great if you know him a lot. And I keep a little picture in my room that shows him and me, and it just reminds me. And he also gave me this plaque that says, "The winner of the year, son."
Oh, great. Wonderful. A lot of kids feel angry. Their dad's dying, or that or that they got AIDS through sex. Did you have anger, and would you tell these kids it'd be okay to feel angry, or how do you feel about that?
I felt really angry when I found out, and I thought my mom was joking when she told me, but then I realized that she wasn't, and I didn't really talk to my dad about it at all. And I did have a lot of anger, and what I used to do with my anger was throw things away. But now I realized it's better just to let your anger go and talk about it.
So you tell the kid it's okay to be angry then, huh? Okay, and what about, is it okay to feel fearful, feel fear?
Yes, it is.
So you need to give them a lot of permission to be real.
Yes.
Yeah, not to wear masks. Have you seen the book, There's a Rainbow Behind Every Dark Cloud? The center is? Well, they have it out here, but one of the pictures, pictures is taking the mask off and giving it. The kids who wrote this book, in fact, the kids who wrote this book, right here, these two have drawings and statements there saying that it's okay to cry, and that's even though you're going through bad things, and you do a lot of laughing too. But it's really important to share your emotions. Kathy Harris, where are you? Would you come up? Kathy, you said you might come up if we asked you. Over here, Kathy. You had a lot of contact with this family, and I thought maybe we can learn something from you about the richness of this relationship and about attitudinal healing. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, one thing I was just thinking of was how touched I have been by the way that Susan and Nick have worked together, going through their dad's illness and Nick's dad's illness and Nick's death. And I can remember a conversation on the phone with Susan one time, and I said, "Susan, how's it going? Are you guys talking to each other? And are you letting Nick see what's happening for you?" And I remember Susan saying back to me, "Yeah, he's just seen me crying." And from that, Nick cuddled up to me and he let himself cry, and they both talked about with each other their sadness around around Nick's dad being so ill. Another lovely thing that Susan told me about with, well, maybe I'll get Nick to talk about it. We'll see how this goes. So Nick, I was real touched with how you worked with your dad when he was so sick in the hospital before he died. And maybe you could tell these folks what was important for you to let your dad know when he was so sick.
That it was okay for me to see him, and I wasn't scared for me to see him, because he thought I would be really scared to see him.
And what would you do with him when you were there?
I would probably play a board game, watch Star Trek, and I would just watch TV. We would make Kool-Aid, and just sometimes I would sleep there. Sometimes my mom would pick me up at night.
And what did you want him to know about dying? What did you tell him about dying?
It's okay to die.
And what did you want him to know? Why was it okay? What did you think about that?
I thought it was okay to die because it's if you go, there's a God and you can go to heaven and it's all peaceful and it's nice, it's beautiful, and it's a nice place to go.
So I remember you telling me when I was talking to you on the phone before he died that you wanted him to know that it was okay to die and okay to let go.
Kathy, I wonder if you can put it in a few sentences or a few paragraphs, you as a student, what you learned from Nick, what you learned from Susan.
Well, something that I've learned from Susan is her desire and her willingness to speak about her feelings, and being in group with her, with the parents. It was just really lovely to see her wanting to have truth spoken, wanting to have feelings being shared, and her willingness to do that with her peers, with the other parents, and also watching her willingness to do that with her son, and to speak so truthfully and so honestly, and wanting to have feelings shared with each other, instead of rather than trying to protect Nick. And what I've seen with Nick is, over the last few years, is his growing more and more into expressing his feelings, and a willingness to share that, and a willingness to speak about his love also with his dad, and to get out there with that, and knowing that that was okay to do.
Now the whipped cream of the evening. We got 10 more minutes, and someone has the microphone here. They came up to me earlier. Who's the person who has the microphone out here? Okay. And this is your chance to ask questions to this wonderful panel of experts here. So who would like to break the ice and ask the first question or make the first comment? Doesn't have to be a question. But please, the doors are locked. You can't leave. So who'd like to ask a question? Kathy, I'd like you to wait up there and sit up there. You can't, yeah, sure. You can't sneak away.
Yeah, Jerry, I wonder if your family would comment on how they themselves have used the Course in Miracles. Have they become students of the Course? And if so, how have they become students?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. Anybody here a student of the Course in Miracles? No? I do think they live the principles, but they're not students of the book. But again, the center was based on the principles that were really kind of doused by me from the Course and put in a different form. But what they've been sharing with you tonight is what the Course would call honesty, a harmony in what you think, in what you say, and what you do. And I think that's why you feel that sense of peace that's expanding from each of these people's hearts, in spite of what they've been through. Other thoughts and comments? Way in the back there, someone has their hand up.
I've heard you talk about the importance of both thinking positive and being able to feel bad. Could you talk about the relationship between the importance of thinking positive and being able to feel bad at the same time?
Do you understand the question? I don't think Nick understands that quite. Can you make that question so that Nick and everyone else here could really understand? Could you simplify it, what I'm asking you to do?
There are some people that deny all the negative feelings, that I haven't heard the people expressing that while they've been putting emphasis on being able to think positive, but it doesn't mean denying the negative or the bad feelings at the same time. And it just strikes me that what it means to be able to do both of those.
Okay. Anybody want to respond to that? Okay.
If I understand what you're saying, there's things that have happened to me that make me really sad. And I go ahead and I'm sad, and that's okay. But then it gets to a point where I don't want to be sad any longer. I'm tired of being sad. And then I can go ahead and use the tools that I've learned, and I know how to get beyond that. There's a certain amount of grieving time or a certain amount of time so that you're not stuffing your feelings. That's the one thing I've learned not to do any longer, is if I have a negative feeling, I don't want to stuff it because it's not okay to say or talk about it or feel it. It's okay to feel anything. But then if you want to be happy and you want to be positive, then there's ways to get to that place.
Joe?
Answering your question and feeling bad, when I was first sick, I never saw my dad cry. And I think that's something that has always been instilled in a man's manliness, is that you cannot cry in front of your child or in front of your spouse. And I was told this many years ago after I'd gotten sick that when my dad found out that I was sick, he was very, very angry. But he would not let me see me cry. And he went off into a corner and he cried by himself. Just a few years ago, I had been going through some problems, and I'm very emotional now, and that's to my upbringing. My dad and I sat down and we cried together. That's the first time I've ever seen my dad cry in front of me. It's so easy. It's not, but to me it seems like it's so easy for my mom to cry because, they're like the pillar. They're the person that has the emotion, and it's so hard for us men, and I'm not trying to be biased on any side, for men to hold back, and they got to be so strong. But sometimes when you have that positive feeling, but that anger inside you, you got to express it, and if it makes you cry and it lets you all out, well, that's the only way that you're going to get that positive feeling, is by letting it all out. And if you got to cry to do it, hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Anybody else?
Well, for me, I was, and I did say I was very angry. I thought it was unfair that this was going to happen to me again, and it was going to unfair. It was going to happen to my son, and it was going to be unfair that when my son became a teenager, I couldn't say, "Well, go live with your dad," and and what that was all about for me was identifying what I was feeling and what was going through my head and what was my thoughts. But a lot of that was in the future, and a lot of that was, okay, this is the day I have. What can I do today? You know, do I choose to be negatively thinking about how unfair this is, or do I choose another way to look at it? And I think that's what the center has taught me, is how can I look at this in a different way.
As Sally and Joe put it, it's all right if you feel negative feelings, as long as you express them and own up to them and admit to yourself they are fearful feelings. And then they transform themselves into positive feelings. And maybe also if you say them in a slightly different manner, as I do a lot of times. I mean, I remember someone asked me about, I type with one hand, and someone said, "Isn't that twice as hard?" And I turned to them and said, "No, it's half as easy."
I can't hear you.
How to ask.
The microphone's not on.
Okay, I think I talk loud enough anyway. At what point of your life that you decided to make a choice about your own recovery, about your own life, and then have that help around you and feel that strength to go on and do something about your life? And I've seen that each one of you has done that, but I know somewhere in you that you had to make that choice yourself.
Okay, who would like to? Joe?
That choice may come at the most odd times. You may make that choice the day or the second they say you're sick. You make that choice. Or that choice may come a year down the road when you're just about to go and you make that choice. That choice comes from the heart. It's the time that when you have to say, okay, I need to relieve myself of all the pain and pressure that I have, and now all the pain and pressure that I have, I need to turn not inward, but outward and let myself go after it and not let this harm me, not let this take over me. My own personal thing was seeing a good friend die, and the day the doctor told me that I was sick, I knew from that moment, the second that he said, "Joe, you have leukemia," I knew right then and there that that was not going to happen to me. I was not going to die. I did not want to. I hadn't lived my life yet. I haven't done the things that I wanted to do. And I said to myself that if I ever have the chance to answer a question like this, I would say, this is the time that you got to do it. At that very moment that you hear that moment that you get so scared and you're so nervous and you're, oh my God, I'm going to die. No, I'm not. You just got to come back and say, no, I'm not, and work at it and work real hard.
I think too that as myself being pretty young when my disease was diagnosed, that a lot of the choices were made for me by my mother, and I respected those choices and the choices that she made and my getting involved in the center. And I realize now that a lot of the things that I learned at the center, I didn't necessarily make the choice at 7 years of age to use those in my lifetime, but I look back and realize that somewhere along the line, probably a lot of it came when I started to choose my field and realized what I learned and from my experiences and from a lot of the things that I learned at the center. And so I think that choice can actually come at any time, or it may just be a more gradual realization of the things that you've learned and the experiences that you've had. And I think it can be real different from a young child, and I think for me it had a lot to do with the fact that I had real strong adults and people who I looked up to who were reinforcing the positive choices that they'd made for me as a child.
I think we have time for just one more question. Over here in the third row.
I want to ask a question to Andrea, Joey, and Sally. What about your diagnosis at this moment? Are you fully cured, or is there a real chance to have the same illness again?
I have been in remission for 14 years, and I'm considered cured at this point. But I can't say that it's not in the back of your mind. But a lot of that like I said, taking it a day at a time and realizing what I learned from the experience and not dwelling on the fact that if it could possibly happen again, because it could possibly happen again to anybody. So I just realized the fact that I've made it this far and I seem to be doing okay, so I'm just going to put my energy into that and let's take it as it comes.
I just want to say that in 2 months, I go for my 19th year cancer checkup. And it's been 9 years. At 10 years, my doctor said that, well, Mr. Orr, you're a normal little boy again. And I said, thank you very much. And it took me a long time to accept that, because every time I wake up and I feel a little bump or something, a little bruise, I'm like, oh my God, what happened? And I tell you, in 2 months, I'll be so nervous going in for my 19th year checkup. It always stays in the back of your mind. Once you have something like this, you can never forget it, never forget the experience, and it's helped me grow. But, I go in there and my doctor shows me around to other kids who are just starting out, and I look back and I'm like, God, I was there 19 years ago. God, it just seems like a drop in the bucket. But 19 years and I'm still going strong, so I'm not giving up.
I was just telling Joe, I don't even keep track anymore. I just had to put it behind me. When I went in, they had me go in for second look surgery, and like Timon was saying, just because the doctors tell you have to do something in your gut, if it just doesn't seem right, you better stand up for yourself. And I finally went to president of the Medical Society, Dr. Lawrence White. I went and got third and fourth opinions. And he said, you know what, if they go in and they find cancer after the chemicals that have gone through your system, because they gave me the maximum amount they could, then the ball game's over. You've got a couple innings left, but you're not going to make it. He says, or they're going to go in and they're going to prove to themselves what you already know, and that is that the cancer's gone. So I've hung on to his words.
If I were to respond to that question, and if Joe was listening to me, I would say that Joe had leukemia in the past. He's totally healthy today. All of this is something in the past, and sometimes we get a little trigger thing that tries to break the past into the present, and that's our challenge to say, okay, because it's possible for you to go to that examination and be more peaceful than the physician. I want to really acknowledge the people that are here in terms of their decision to be here. They could have said no. They said yes. That they really empowered themselves to be here. And I don't think what happened this evening could have happened if each of you weren't here in the audience sharing your unconditional love. There's no looking out here and see anyone attacking anyone. And I would like to suggest that you all stand up and allow the audience to really acknowledge who you are. Can we do that?